All right, welcome everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a blog post and some of the psychology and rationale behind why to structure blog posts in the way that we recommend. And first, to start off, highly recommend putting this content on your website, on your primary business website, not a separate standalone website. Because you're putting fresh content, which is great for Google and SEO purposes on your website, and you're driving traffic back to that website by sending people links and by people finding this content over time. So that's really important. It's also become, these blog posts have become kind of a hybrid between a blog post, show notes, video content, audio content. They've all kind of synthesized into one blog post. So sometimes people ask about the distinction between a blog post versus a podcast post. It is a post. We refer them kind of interchangeably. And also, Jeremy, let's talk about how to organize them in the navigation, because a lot of times clients come to us and want to know where to put it in their navigation, particularly if they have an existing blog or a news area or an updates area or something like that.
Yeah, we'll go through the actual anatomy and the different pieces in a second, like you just pointed out. But a lot of people ask us, where do I put this on my website, on my page? Obviously, you want someone coming to your page to find it. So in this example, we're looking at Potomac Business Capital. It's very simple. There is a podcast page in the navigation so people can find it. A big mistake people make is they don't put it on their podcast page, or they don't put it on their website, or they put it in the footer where no one can find it. So obviously, if we click here, it goes to his podcast page, right? Same thing with this. Tread Partners, you can see they have a big, it's like huge in their navigation. They know because it's great content and they're able to highlight what they do. Same thing with Multiply You. It's a podcast page as well. And what we recommend too, sometimes people already have a blog page. All right. They already have a blog page, let's say. And if this was instead of podcast, blog, we have people just go blog and podcast. So they don't have to redo and do a whole new page. And most likely people aren't updating their blog that much anyways. So they put podcast and blog, and all of the posts go there. All right. For example, at Rise 25, we do have a resources page, and it drops down into the different shows that we run for ourselves. But if we go to the blog, this just goes to all of the posts, all of the podcast posts on the different shows and articles and everything like that. So you could do it that way, but something to make it super easy. If you already have a blog page, it could be just relabel it podcast and blog and populate that blog page with all of the podcast episodes. So
and make it easy for people to find is the fundamental.
Look at how, I mean, this is the highlight of their page, right? They want people going here, and podcast page, it's easy to find when it's in the navigation. So let's go to the anatomy of the post.
So the post itself has a number of elements to it, and we have real rationale behind why we organize it the way that we do.
Real quick, so when we go to the blog page, right, you can see this. I'll click on this one and I'll open it up, Laura Bernard, and we'll go through some of the elements here.
So we have first a headline, we have an image of the guest, and think about, particularly, as you know, we're huge advocates of building relationship with your guest. And so when the guest lands on this page, we want it to be a wonderful experience for them, where they take a look and, they say that the sweetest sound anyone hears is the sound of their own name, right? So when they land on this page, they see their name, their picture, their bio, right up front and center. And a lot of times with podcast listeners, it's something similar too, where they are, looking to the meat, like who's this episode about? And so you want to put the person's bio and who the guest is and why you want to listen to them front and center in the beginning, in the first paragraph.
Yeah. Before you even know, what's this about? Like, who is the person that's going to be telling me about this? And they want to see the credibility and social proof of that person they're listening to. But from the guest standpoint, they want to see themselves front and center. I do want to point out something in the title, right? So typically you can see this has some brackets on it, top agency series. And then typically what happens is if you want a specific category, like I do, certain posts I want categorized, it's very simple to do. And then our team actually just comes up with the title, and I just said this is part of the top agency series. So you may want to categorize your interviews. It's very simple to do. If you go to your upload form and all I did was I just typed in top agency series and close brackets, and then the team came up with the rest of the title. So if you do want to categorize a interview, just fill that first part in. But I just let our team do that. John, like the next part is the picture. Now there's two options, right? Our team will pull the picture. The other one, if you look at John's posts on Smart Business Revolution, he does a featured image, right? Obviously, that's an additional add-on. So John does the featured image. I just have our team pull the picture. Either way, there's going to be a picture of the person there. So the first part, as you were saying, John, is we do a bio of the person specifically, because it adds the social proof to who is the guest listening to, but the guest themselves is going to love this. We have some people push back on this a little bit. They're like, well, front and center, maybe I just want to know, maybe the person wants to know what this is about before anything. We have found, well, the person, a listener wants to also, who is speaking before they listen to what is this whole thing about.
And you have to think from the listener's perspective, when someone is flipping through a bunch of other content and they're looking at content online, they're looking for the meat of it. And you see a lot of times kind of fluff in that paragraph where, it talks kind of in a fluffy way about what the subject matter is. And it's very easy to breeze past that. But by having the name of the guest, you're going to be much more targeted in attracting the right type of listener who's looking in that particular content. They're going to be able to get that information faster.
Yeah. So the next piece after the bio is the video, right? Now, not everyone does videos, of course, but we highly recommend it, obviously, because Google owns YouTube and it's great for SEO, but it also is great from a personal connection. Like right off the bat, you can see someone. So the next piece, if you are getting video, is an embedded video. And we recommend that next because then people could just hop right into the content. I was looking at a post the other day from on another podcast. Their video was all the way at the bottom of this post. And I was like searching because I just wanted to watch the video and listen to the audio part. It was buried at the bottom. That's why we put it right at the top, right here. Now, remember, when this happens, we go into your YouTube channel, post it on your YouTube channel, and it's embedded into the post. Okay. So just remember it's on your YouTube channel. Okay. And so same thing here with Todd Taskey. This is embedded on his YouTube channel. And, but we want to send people to your website. So we don't want to link out. So if someone's promoting an episode, I see big mistakes. They're here, go to my YouTube channel, here, go to my iTunes, here, go to Spotify. We want them going back to your real estate because then they poke around and discover what you do. There may be an opt-in, email opt-in, and things like that. So the next piece is the video. But again, we're not promoting the YouTube video itself. We're promoting them back to this page on the website. So that's the video piece, right? John, anything else on this component?
Without getting into a long conversation about how to optimize for video SEO, we don't need to get into that. Yeah, but you want to have it front and center so that they can just click on it very quickly.
I mean, you've been to posts where it's buried all the way at the bottom. I'm like, why did you put the video all the way at the bottom?
One other point is people listen to content all kinds of different ways. So there are a lot of people that listen to podcast content on YouTube. They might just put it up on a laptop or an iPad or a phone and put it aside and do the dishes or go for a walk or something like that. So there are people who are going to do that. They'll just put it on, play. They maybe don't even look at the video, but they're doing something else and listening to it.
Yep. And the next thing, again, because people consume in different ways, we have the video, and then next is the audio player, right? So people can click right on here and listen to the audio version, right? And, the other thing to think about is there's these buttons here. And we're going to get to some mistakes people make. These buttons are here not because we want necessarily people to go to Spotify or iTunes, but like we know people have certain behaviors. And if they already listen on Spotify, they may go, oh, I need to go subscribe on Spotify. And so we have these buttons here. They also serve as social proof. Okay. It's like, oh, wow, this is on Apple and Spotify and Google Play and TuneIn, iHeartRadio. So there's a social proof element to that. But honestly, we want them sticking on this page as much as possible. But a user behavior, John may be like, well, I like to listen to everything on Spotify. So they click on this, they go over to Spotify and they subscribe on Spotify. And now you're in their phone. That's just their behavior. For me, I don't listen to things on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but they also see this is legit. It's on all these platforms. So again, you could see 8 channels on here. You could just get away with just doing 4 if you want, but they're really there for social proof and for user behavior.
Then below that, we've got the bullets. So we've got some kind of highlights. So again, kind of giving an overview of why to listen to this episode. And beyond that, we have further description in this episode. So just really kind of building out the post and explaining everything that's there. Again, some people prefer to read long form content in full paragraphs. Other people prefer short, snippy, punchy bullets. And then you've got resources mentioned down below, which is really nice for people who listen to the episode and hear something mentioned and want to check out that resource or that website later. It's also helpful for your guests for SEO purposes because you're linking back to their website.
Yeah, I want to just point out in this episode, it's also good for SEO purposes. Is good, again, like some people want to watch a video, some people want to listen, some people just want to read the post. So building this out a little bit more with what this is about is great for the person visiting the page, but it's also good for SEO and the site itself. All right. So that's that piece. And then John, you mentioned the resources. So we'll pull out different links and resources, which again, if you're not, we have a whole separate video where we talk about how do you best reach out to people from this resources section. So you can check that out. But this is important to have because it's giving some love and shout out to other people that may have not been on that show. Like on this particular show, you could see I mentioned Jason Swank and Todd Tasky and Andrea Houston and Andrea Houston's podcast and other people. So that's the special mentions. And just mention other episodes of the podcast and other people. But this section is so important from a relationship building perspective, to have those links because people love having their links up and it's great for their SEO.
And then you got related episodes down below, and of course, sponsor message for the episode, which should be for your company. That this would say
key.
Say the same.
The sponsorship piece is key, and again, you have different links here, obviously, and you can decide to put different anchor text in there if you want to rank for different things. This section is important if you go creating a podcast, right? Also, we link to different parts of our site. So having a great sponsor message with a link to your website and also a way for people to contact you. We even have a scheduling link in there if people want to just schedule straight from there or email us. So the sponsorship part is essential.
And then the final piece is transcripts, which not everyone does, but it is, I always say, one of the best ways to add 3,000 to 5,000 words of fresh content, keyword rich content to your website. There's been plenty of resources out there from different SEO experts talking about how a podcast, and particularly creating a transcript, adding that transcript into the blog post, really helps from an SEO standpoint.
I want to finish off with mistakes people make. So listen to this. You could send this part to your web person because there's stuff they can easily correct some of the stuff. Before we get to mistakes, John, is there anything else with the anatomy of the post that we should talk about?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. So mistakes. A mistake we see, this, by the way, is great. They have, when you go to the navigation, they have podcasts in the navigation. That's fantastic. Some mistakes we see is when someone puts right front and center out to another platform. So some people will have these listed as logos at the top of their podcast or blog page. They think it looks cool, but ultimately I don't see any posts. It just makes me want to go here. And a lot of people don't scroll down. They may not even scroll down to see, wow, there's a really cool post here and I should go there. So we tell people if they can avoid putting an external link at the top to other podcast platforms to take this off. This could just be the cover art in our latest episodes, and I would shrink this down so you can see the posts. Like when you go to mine, you can see, you could just scroll down and see the posts. There's nowhere else to go but go to a post. Okay. So that's one, is avoid having an external link from your blog when they go to the podcast page so they could bounce off of your site. Okay. We also see podcast pages where they're just pulling in the RSS feed. And so you could literally only see the episodes, and you can only see the players. You can't see each of these posts. That's a mistake, just to have the players. Okay. I'll show an example of that actually in a second. But John, anything else on this piece?
Yeah, one, you pointed out to me years ago when you helped take over my show, I had overcomplicated it, where if you think about it, there's so many different elements here, and structurally they need to go in multiple different places. And so if you, for example, have a number of your episode in there, like a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which we recommend against doing for a number of different reasons. But if you do that and you put it into the title, you put it into the show notes, you put it into the artwork that goes into this, and then it gets pushed out into all the different podcasting channels out there. If things get moved around, which happen frequently, different reasons, then you have to change that one thing in multiple different places. So you want to minimize the number of different places where you're going to have to make modifications. So as far as the artwork is concerned, just removing those pieces, those elements like an episode number, a date, you don't want to have a date in there, will vastly simplify things so that you don't have to deal with that kind of complexity if there are elements like that do happen. As you see here, we got a date on there. Now, the problem with that is that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if people discover it, they look at it, they immediately think it's dated because they see it's from a long time ago. Same thing can happen to the episode numbers. If they're on episode 377 and they see episode 6, they're going to think, oh, this is not timely, and maybe they don't want to consume it for that reason. So avoiding episode numbers and avoiding dates in your episodes allows you to use it much longer because it's timeless, not timely.
Yep. Yeah. And when someone sees that, they consciously or subconsciously think that's old, right? So you'll notice, so this is something you could send your web developer. You could easily do it on the back end and just take off the date. You'll notice none of my posts have dates because someone will land in the middle, like 7 years ago. They'll find a post, and if it said from 7 years ago, they go, oh, this is old, this is dated, either consciously or subconsciously. So purposefully taking off the dates of the posts. right?
Yeah, and I
So
get emails from people that literally they listen to an episode from like 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they'll email me about it and say, "Hey, I just listened to your episode with so and so." They don't know that it's, from years earlier. They think it might be recent, and that goes with, by the way, the conversation in the episode itself. That's not to say that you have to avoid talking about anything that's timely, depending on what your topic is of your podcast. But avoiding things like, "Oh, did you watch the Super Bowl last weekend? The Chiefs just won." That kind of thing can make it seem like more dated content in the future.
yep. Here's another example, and Richard Walker has a great podcast. Again, taking these off of the top, because initially this is going to take someone off of their page and off to YouTube. And if you go to YouTube, now all of a sudden I'm on a cat video, I see it on the side and I'm off watching some basketball video or cat video. So we recommend taking these distractions off, and it just starts with this, right? And so if someone clicks on it, it goes to a separate page with the audio and all the information. But again, even on this is at the top. So it's taking me off of the website that I want to stick on, right? So we recommend just having the posts start at the top so they can kind of peruse through there. So that's, again, where we recommend as far as putting it in the navigation, the anatomy of the post, and the importance of all those pieces, which we've thought out a lot, and some of the mistakes people make. John, one of the things that we'll get from time to time is, on the player, as you can see here, there's cover art. Okay. And again, if you look across your shows, you have the same cover art for the player. If you look on my shows, you could see Inspired Insider, the same cover art. From time to time, we'll get questions of people asking, should we customize the cover art per episode? And, what we say is, we don't recommend it unless you're like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan or Jordan Harbinger. You get millions and millions of downloads and your business is a media company selling sponsorship. You don't need to do that. And, the goal is for the company, the B2B company, to spend the time and energy on things that will move the needle. Okay. Changing up this for every episode. First of all, we'd rather not charge you additional when we don't think it's going to deliver more ROI for you. So we don't recommend changing this for every episode. We don't do it. I know, John, you don't do it. 99% of people do not do it. We will get that question from time to time. Also, in addition, this is super small. So to customize this and put other elements on there, remember on someone's phone,
it's tiny.
It's very tiny.
And I'll also point out that I find it quite confusing. I listen to a lot of podcasts on different podcasting apps. And when you're flipping through and you're looking at, again, on a phone, 12 different tiny little thumbnails, and you're looking for the show that you're looking for, you're like, oh, hey, I want to go check and see if they have a new episode of that show that I listen to. And if it's different every time and the colors are different every time, it's confusing. You can't find it easily. And so it leads to a bad experience. Whereas like there are certain shows that show up in my feed and I know, oh, boom, there it is. I can click on it very easily. And so that consistency is really helpful from a listener standpoint. So I think it actually detracts from the experience to modify it.
Yeah. So just to conclude, we talked about navigation best practices. We talk about the anatomy of the post and some mistakes to avoid.